This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is the 2018 Breeders' Cup Friday edition of the show, a co-production, as it were, with the Matt Bernier Show. We are recording this Halloween night. Things looking a little spooky out there on the streets of Louisville. I actually had something happen that was straight out of a movie on the way up to the room, where the elevator stopped at the 10th floor and there was like a woman in the full-on like ghoul outfit standing there. She didn't even get on the elevator. I just hit closed doors as quickly as possible and hustled up to the room so we could record this show. On this show, we are going to go over the first 7 of the 14 Breeders' Cup races, including the 5, including the new one that will be happening on Friday, the first 2 on Saturday. And then we won't be leaving you in the lurch. We'll be switching over to the Matt Bernier Show, handing off the reins to Matt to host, to bring us home and do the final 7 races on the day. I am your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, coming to you not from the Brooklyn Bunker, but from the Sky Cave at the Galt House. And I'm very happy to bring in the usual co-host of this show. He's been traveling all day. He started his day in Louisville. He'll be back in Louisville tomorrow. But right now, because he feels more comfortable, he told me, doing the podcast from the planet Texas, he decided to go all the way back there. I told him it was nuts. He don't listen. He's Jonathan Kinchin, the People's Champion. JK, what's up?
I am just walked in the house. I took off my pants. I'm sitting here.
We're starting off with a TMI situation.
But I was going to say, starting on the right foot.
I think I was pantless last Breeders' Cup too. So I guess it's a tradition. I'm a little bit nervous. We've been having a water issue, and I haven't been here in Austin, so I have no idea if I'm allowed to drink the water or not. So I'm going to need to do some Googling.
I would skip it. Honestly, I would just drink the beer. It served us well last year. We created listener Eric Bilik's favorite moment in the history of the DRF Players Podcast, where I believe it was after discussing the turf sprint and having too much strong California beer. I channeled the local surfer community and said something to the effect of, "It's a tough race, man," in a very California way, and he told me he just listened to it over and over. I say just go with the beer, JK, skip the water. That other voice you heard, we've said his name already a couple of times on this podcast program, one of my favorite broadcasting partners, the original host of the DRF Players Podcast. He now has his own eponymous show, one of my favorite horse players, Matt Bernier. Matt, what's up, my man?
It's happening, gentlemen. This has probably could become my favorite thing to do yearly as far as any of these little pods are concerned, just because, it feels like getting the band back together, going way back in the day. And it's always more fun when you can chop it up with other people that have interesting opinions that may not necessarily jive with your own, and hearing other people and people that you respect, and kind of curious what your all thoughts are on these races. But also, let's be honest, I'm here to defend the crown. We've only done this one time. I'm here to back it up, go 2 for 2.
I knew you were going to mention that. We did have the contest last year. I was last by a long way. That lovely cow-face talismanic got me out. JK, I couldn't remember what humiliation you had to suffer last year as the result of finishing last in our 3-man contest. Was that when you had to dress up and go to the Hooters dressed as a Hooters girl? Was that time?
No. I did win that bet with a childhood friend in fantasy football. I guaranteed victory 2 weeks ago against him. The loser was going to have to dress as a Hooters girl and go to Hooters, and I was victorious. So looking forward to that next time we have a draft.
But didn't we have a stake? There was bragging rights for the winner, but I thought the loser had to do something humiliating. I don't know if it was an I Love PTF Twitter avatar. I honestly can't remember what it was, but
losing to you is humiliating enough. I don't think there needs to be more.
JK had to change the avatar to the Peanuts.
That's what it was. Yes, confusing Tony Joe among others. We had to explain what the significance of the nuts emoji, Jonathan's fragile mental state notwithstanding. So is that it? I think we got to go there again. The loser of the three here going to have to wear the peanut emoji as the avatar for the week. Did the winner get anything? Should we do something for charity, something?
I mean, we could certainly entertain that idea. I mean, I'm always going to be a fan of if you run last, there needs to be some sort of punishment, but why can't there be both?
That. Yeah, I'm definitely good installing that. We'll see. I think some sort of charitable donation by the other two in the name of the winner. We are going to have at the end of this year, Matt, I don't know if you've followed along with this, we have a mistake jar now on the DRF Players Podcast, which frequently both of us have to contribute to for saying or doing ridiculous things throughout the course of the show. We do have some big plans for the mistake jar regarding charity, because let me tell you, the total's getting up there. But this will be another type of charitable donation. Winner will choose the charity. The other two kick in $50, $100 donation to the winner's charity choice. Are we happy with that?
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So here's how it's going to work. We will each pick one horse in each race, and we will just go with the highest parimutuel totals win place to determine the winner. Don't worry, the show's not going to be all gimmick. We will analyze the races in the process, but you can hear us all over the place going fully in depth about the races. And we will. I'm not saying we're not going to do some of that, but I definitely think that we deserve to make this a little more fun for us and for you along the way. And we'll start off. I think it makes sense to go in. The person who goes, the order will start with Matt as the winner last year, then me going second in the second race, and then JK in the third race. Is that all sounding right to you, gentlemen?
The only caveat I would ask, or just at least throw out there, do I have the opportunity to choose between these first three picks?
Ooh, yeah, then we should let him choose, Pete. That way he can essentially get his first choice in the race he really wants to have his first choice in.
I like it, and then we'll just rotate. From there. I like it. That works. So
yeah, say so. 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 3, 1, and whatnot. So
good. I'm going to make you keep track of the order.
The Juvenile Turf Sprint.
Yes, let's talk there. Is this the race you want your first pick in?
No, I'm going to, in this spot, I will end up selecting, hang on, let me do some just quick mental math so I'm not a dummy. I want to be picking first in the third race, so I'm going to go third in this race.
Okay, Matt Bernier tries, math succeeds. Gian Menez, who asked some excellent questions today in the webinar we did. He did the DRF Players Podcast bingo cards. We have a new one now. Matt Bernier tries math. Any reference to Matt Bernier really should probably go on the bingo card. By the way, I will give a quick plug to some of the work we've been doing. Matt, what is the best and easiest way for people to find the in-depth videos you've been participating in about this year's Breeders' Cup? We'll start with that.
You can find all the racing form goodies over on video.drf.com or the YouTube channel for the racing form. However, I mean, that's easy enough to find. Just go on YouTube and search that. You can also find most of the stuff, as we all know now, on Apple Podcasts or any of the other places that you find your podcasts, iTunes, whatever else it may be. That's where most of our stuff is housed.
Excellent. If you're looking for my stuff, I'm hosting a couple of webinars. One's archived already, the Timeform US Takeover that I did this morning with David Aragona and Craig Milkowski. Tomorrow at noon, depending on when you're listening to this, maybe you can listen live. If not, you can catch the archive, drf.com/YouTube. Going to be talking about the Saturday races with Mike Watchmaker and Brad Free. I'm also writing and doing some video analysis of contenders and the key prep races over at the races website in the UK at theraces.com. JK, I don't want to leave you out. You got anything you want to plug?
I'm going to be doing the pre-show on the simulcast feed.
Fancy.
I'm doing a pick 6, pick 5, and pick 4 on Friday, and also on Saturday. So I think the times, I have to be there at 11. So I think I'm on at 11:30 on Friday. I have to be there at 9 on Saturday. I believe I'm on at 9:30. So yeah, I'll be giving those tickets.
And I'll be standing in the background heckling. All right, so let's start with this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. I will go first. Why not, right? Somebody's got to do it. I'll do it. And there is a horse I like in this race. I mean, I think I have sympathy for the point of view that this could be a laboratory for chaos, but I am very interested in Soldier's Call in this spot. I just think he's got the best form. I understand that running around a bend is an open question, but that race in the Prix de l'Abbé was visually arresting to me. And maybe I'm overly impressed since we don't have our 2-year-olds running against their elders, but I just thought it was very impressive and more impressive probably upon deeper analysis even than it looked, given a number of factors, including the way the wind was blowing. I think Soldier's Call might represent some value here at 4-1. And that's the way that my money is going to go. So, Matt, according to the way you wrote out the schedule, who's going second here? Is this going to be JK?
Yes, it would be Jonathan, yes.
What are your thoughts on this race, JK? Is it a race you're going to be playing in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge?
No, I'm not going to play in the BCBC. I'll be playing it. I'll be playing it obviously in the Pick 5. It's the first leg of the Pick 5, the All Stakes, All Breeders' Cup, Pick 5. You actually took my pick. I was going to pick.
Soldier's Call.
Soldier's Call, yeah. But what I decided to do, I'll take Queen of Bermuda. 4 back, ran against Soldier's Call, was beaten a length, has acted on soft ground. So it's just, it's a long shot. Like you said, it's a chaos race. I'm going to be spread pretty heavy in here. My biggest stance and my most clever opinion is I'm against Shang. And I'll tell you why. And I started to hesitate to wonder if I was supposed to say this, but I wasn't told I wasn't supposed to say it, so I'm saying it. I ran into Aaron Greider, who worked Shang last time, and said that Shang does not like it soft, and it's going to be soft. I got out of there just in time, but it was pouring when I left, and I imagine you guys have some pouring stories to confirm that. But I'm going to fade Shang at a short price off of a long break and not liking the surface.
Fair enough, and that's a great point about the weather. The ground clearly having cut in it already just from attending training the last few mornings. The rain we've gotten today, while it looks like it'll dry up in time for the actual racing, there ain't no way this ground is going to be, I got to think yielding is the over-under. So I think if you had European horses you were expecting to come over here and act on firm, as I was, on the podcast we did after Royal Ascot, I came on here and I think even specifically mentioned horses like Expert Eye and Magic Wand. I don't think they're going to get the ground. I don't think we're going to have Royal Ascot-like ground here. Matt, where are you going to go in this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Did I hear right that Jonathan went with Queen of Bermuda?
You did.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go just to the outside with Pocket Dynamo. Now, you brought up the ground. Who knows if he's going to be able to act over it. But for me, the big kind of draw with a horse like this, the outside post, no bargain, obviously. But that Cornwallis Stakes, everyone was just so taken by Sergei Prokofiev's big move, and as was I. I mean, it was awesome. But if you go back and watch that tape a little bit more, take a look for those Phoenix Thoroughbred Silks. And this horse, Pocket Dynamo, had zero opportunity to run at any point. And I suppose I just kind of look at it and say with 2-year-olds, I go back to those 2 races over the summer, the one at Ascot where he was only beaten a nose by Shang, and then that run over in France. And both of those, the time form ratings, those at least at that time of year, they put him in the ballpark if you believe that he's going to be able to improve, which he should off of such a poor effort or a troubled trip, I should say. And he's 20-1 on the morning line. I think he's going to be pretty close to that come post time. Again, the ground, to be honest with you, I have no idea if he's going to be able to handle it, but I think he's probably a little bit – I don't think he's as bad as necessarily the paper would suggest. I think he's a little bit interesting.
It's an open question about the ground, as you point out, but I think that's a great point about the run in the Norfolk. I mean, Shang got very lucky there, in my opinion. The wind had changed on that day, and I think was just able to hang on and get the job done. Hasn't been out since. Meanwhile, here you still have some more group form. You're a nose from that one. You're going to be a multiple of the price. I like the direction that Matt is thinking there.
Well, one more horse, Pete. I just wanted to
you don't get two in the contest, JK. Oh, this is another negative. Go ahead.
Yeah. Strike Silver is another horse I probably won't be using. We'll talk about this a little bit, I'm sure, throughout the show. But historically, the inside of the turf course is not ideal when it gets wet. And usually the riders find out and they try to get off of it. But in a turf sprint, I don't see a lot of opportunities for Strike Silver to get off of it. And look, I don't know what I'm looking at in the morning. I can kind of tell some stuff, but I usually just stand around a bunch of people that do know what they're looking at, and I can see some things. And Strike Silver was a straight runoff one morning, acting like an absolute idiot. And so that's not exactly what I think you want to see from a horse that's going to be drawn inside in a mushy situation with 14 horses, and they're all 2-year-olds and they're running really fast. So Strike Silver is another one at a short morning line that I think you can maybe try to look away from.
That's a great point. And obviously throughout here, guys, if we have an opportunity to either knock shorter prices or throw in other long shots, even if we don't have an opportunity to use them in our little contest, obviously the listeners, so many of whom are USA multi-race exotics players, are going to want to hear that information. So just to state the obvious, let's go ahead and feel free to chime in. All right, 6th race, Breeders' Cup, Juvenile Fillies Turf. JK, I think we all know what you're going to say here.
Do I get the first pick here, Matt? That was very nice of you.
Well, it was part of my thought.
Yeah, I'll take newspaper of record. I can assure you that her performance will be more important on my Breeders' Cup betting challenge wagering card than it will be in this competition.
That's disrespectful.
I will be all in with my 2 entries. I don't care if anyone knows. There's going to be 13 races after this that I'll have to bet as well. But this is how I'm going to start the situation, and I just think this filly is really special. I have reached out personally to 3 different people that I know that make their own figures, and they all say it's fast. And they've retimed it. We've done everything, and no one said it's not. And visually, I loved the fact that she was ears flopping around, and when Irad asked her ears just pinned back. She exploded as soon as he kind of let off the gas. Her ears went right back up again. I think she's extremely talented. The backstretch buzz is happening. I think we'll wake up on Saturday morning and 8 to 5, 7 to 5 will be a gift, free money.
If you get that. The hype is such that I'm beginning to wonder. I don't think she'll be the shortest horse of the 2-day meeting. I think that honor will go to Enable, who we'll get to in the Matt Bernier show a little bit later, but the only concern there being price. Do you go second here, Matt? Am I doing that calculation correctly?
Correct. Yeah, I would go second in here. I can just dovetail on the whole newspaper of record thing. The other thing to keep in mind for her, both of her starts have come over yielding ground. So I don't have any kind of concern about it. Will she or won't she be able to handle it? And she's got that big early speed. She's just way the horse to beat in here. The only other horse that I was really interested in from a win standpoint, and if she had drawn a little bit better, I may have actually considered trying to beat newspaper of record. I like the outside horse. I think the 14 East is actually pretty good based on what she's done in those 2 lifetime starts. She won over soft going in the career debut, and then she came back, and I thought she was really impressive most recently in that Group 3 race. I know it was only a 5-horse field, but she did it all the right way. Lasix go on. Again, that post is no bargain. That's going to be really difficult for her to overcome, but I do think that could be a filly that, as you go into the 3-year-old year next year over in Europe, maybe you'll hear from her again. So I'll go with the outside horse East.
Excellent pick, Matt. If I'd picked first, I would have picked newspaper of record. If I'd picked second, I would have picked East. My friend Kevin Blake, who's a racing manager for Joseph O'Brien and a fantastic form study expert, and do not tell him I said any of these nice things about him, by the way. Guy I've known on message boards for more than a decade. And had the pleasure of being co-host of the Final Furlong podcast, which I had the pleasure of appearing on today as well. But he made some great points, and I think my favorite point he made about East was if it said Aidan O'Brien instead of Kevin Ryan in the trainer section, you'd be looking at a horse who'd be 6-1 or shorter. So I do think she's live. The other one I'll mention is Lily's Candle. Marty Schwartz obviously works with bloodstock agents who have a lot of success when it comes to finding horses from France who end up showing their form in the USA. We've got Group 1 European form at a potentially overlaid price. This is another one. If I did some backup spready type tickets would be another one I would want to cover. I think it's probably all about newspaper of record. I think East is an interesting vertical underneath, but honestly, I don't mind the idea of saving with Lily's Candle, the 3 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf either. Now we move on to the Breeders'
PTF, real quick.
Yes, sir.
This is the first race that the new head-to-head wagers.
Oh, I meant to tell you guys this. I wanted to save 5 minutes at the end of each show. If we can, I promised this to our DRF Sports Forum listeners after JK no-showed that podcast earlier today. I promised 5 minutes at the end to go over head-to-heads. Do you want to put a pin and go there, or do you want to just go ahead and say it now?
Well, it's up to you. I figure we could pop them while we're running, or we can run them at the end.
Put them at the end just in case, because I told the Sports Forum listeners, not all of whom are racing fans, that they could just listen to the last 5 minutes. I wouldn't necessarily make them listen to 2 hours. So let's remember. Don't let me forget to do that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'm glad that you mentioned it because I might have forgotten entirely. Let's move on to race 7. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Matt Bernier used his honor of winning last year's Breeders' Cup podcast, Matt Bernier Show joint contest, to make a pick in this race. Matt, what gold do you have for us?
Well, again, I'm not really, not reinventing the wheel. I think the fastest horse coming into the race is Bellafina. I think the outside post is ideal for her. I had some major sort of reservations about her going into the Chandelier because that debutante was just god-awful from a speed figure standpoint, but she squashed all those sort of concerns, and also with all the equipment changes, she looked like $1 million in that Chandelier, and I understand you can say maybe that field isn't actually as good as many of us thought it was going into it, the horses that she beat, but I think she trips out in here. I think she sits just off Serengeti Empress. The only potential downfall would be if for some reason those two hook up and then maybe it falls into Restless Rider's lap, but I don't really see that happening. I just think Bellafina might be the best horse in the race, and she might be the now horse in the race. She's got the figures. I'll take the chalk. I'll take Bellafina on the outside.
Fair enough. Bellafina would be one of 2 on my super short list. My slightly longer short list would have 3 runners. It is my turn, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go with one of the ones Matt mentioned as a possible alternative, the 4, Restless Rider, who really ran a terrific race last time in the Alcibiades. I'll pronounce it like that. Bet heavily, ran to those odds, and I think second time Lasix, third start off the layoff. There's a lot of opportunity here for Restless Rider to make some impact, and I'm happy. I think if I picked first, I would have picked Bellafina, but Restless Rider, I'm happy with that selection, and I'll mention one other, but maybe that's the one that JK is going to say, so I'll just let him go.
Yeah, it happened to me. This is what happened to you last time. Just happened to me. Those the order in which I would have picked. I would have picked Bellafina. I would have picked Restless Rider. My strongest opinion in this race, and I'll reflect it in the Breeders' Cup betting challenges, I don't like Serengeti Empress. I think that last race was a little bit dressed up. I think that she wasn't facing much. She was right where you wanted to be on that racetrack. She got an easy lead. All those things, and I think she's going to be overbet because she won by 19. And so I feel like there's some value there by fading her, and so that's definitely what I'm going to do. Look, I like Jaywalk. She's kind of my third choice. She's 7-2. I think she's good. I'd use her in everything I play. But I think a more interesting horse and probably a little bit more value for the contest. I don't think she can really win, but running second at 15-1 I think could be something. I'm going to use Vibrance, the 3, for our little competition. Also use her a little bit, but I'm not sure the rail is where you wanted to be in the Chandelier. She ran well enough that day. I watched her work the other day with Axelrod, who's running in the Classic. I think she's doing good by all accounts. And I feel like, Johnny can find something there and try to pick up a little bit of a check. I'll use her. And I think she'll drift from 10-1 as well. Restless Rider's going to take money. Jaywalk, Bellafina, and obviously Serengeti Empress. So I'll use Vibrance for our little contest. But I like all the horses we've named for the most part.
Mike McCarthy, I think he's got about 25 in the barn, 5 at the Breeders' Cup. Definitely an up-and-coming trainer to watch, and that's an interesting long shot. The other one I was going to mention for my short list is Jaywalk, as you pointed out. Just nothing overly clever here, just impressive form and figures.
Do either one of you guys have any thoughts about Sipicane Harbor? Because like I said, I'm going to make a significant situation here. I'm inclined to use but I wanted to see what you guys thought about the horse.
Matt,
I was gonna chime in with her. To be honest with you, I don't think she's done anything wrong in those 2 dirt starts, and the fact that she's been able to win from outright on the lead and come from 100 out of it. I know she had a giant pace to run at in the spin-away, but that's still something that's a feather in her cap for doing that in her 3rd lifetime start. She's going out for low-profile connections. She's going to be $1 million to 1 in a race where, realistically, how much slower is she than everyone else? Maybe from a buyer standpoint she is, but a couple of those time form numbers, that one in the race that she broke her maiden, that's right there with some of the fastest numbers in the race. I think she's real live in here. I picked her 3rd or 4th. I picked her 3rd.
My gut, just as a horse player perspective, sitting around drinking beer talking about races, is to be anti and point out the pace meltdown and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, from what you're looking for, JK, which is presumably to not bust a double where you're putting your tournament life at risk at a horse that I think Matt is right, is not going to be fancied in the market. I think it would be foolhardy to, with all that you look like you're going to be risking here, to take a stand against her when you're already being bold and going anti-Serengeti Empress. Before we leave, I'm also a little bit anti-Serengeti Empress. I won't reiterate everything JK said. Are we being too cavalier, Matt, when it comes to Serengeti Empress?
No, I mean, look, I don't love her either, but at the same time, I think you can look at her one of 2 ways. You can look at her and say, wow, she's just continues to improve and she's putting it all together. Or you can look at it and say, no disrespect to any of the connections that may be listening that ran behind her in the Pocahontas. She may have beaten mules. I don't know if they're the thoroughbred breed. I mean, there's a quarter mile between her and everybody else, and it hasn't come back good at all. And the only other time she's really been tested, she finished 4th and she was beaten by 10 lengths. So, I hate to say this, but you got to prove to me that you actually belong in here. And she's really nice and she's done some good things so far. But I don't think she's got any edge on this field whatsoever. And again, maybe because she has the home field advantage, maybe that puts her over the top. But I'm not totally convinced. And you know what? It sounds like this is the narrative from the 3 of us and basically everyone I've spoken to. So maybe she goes off at a price that she shouldn't go off. Maybe she goes off at 4 to 1, 5 to 1, and maybe she makes all of us pay. But I'm kind of with you guys. I'm fading her.
All right, let's move on to the BC Juvenile Turf. If my calculations are correct, I'm in the pole position here once again.
Yes.
Bunch of different ways to go in this race, but I think my easy first choice, and hoping that the morning line is more accurate for prices than what the actual betting is currently at the bookies over there in the UK and Ireland. I'm a Line of Duty fan. Godolphin, Charlie Appleby, they sent the eventual Derby winner last year to this race. I think they're taking it seriously, and here we have a horse who's got some solid form and just looks suited to the American style of racing. I don't think the cut in the ground is going to be any kind of problem whatsoever. If you could just get the bet down at the 10 to 1 of the morning line, this would be one of my biggest bets of the meet. I'm going to have to go Line of Duty here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Who's up?
JK.
It's old JK. Yeah, I like 2 horses here. I'm thinking about taking the longer priced one just because I'm going to take a lot of chalk the rest of the day.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do in contests? If you're torn, I mean, obviously, if you like the favorite better, take the favorite. If you're torn, take the longer price in this type of format?
I like 40 under a lot, but I'm going to take Some Like It Hot Brown. I guess maybe I just like the Pilgrim is what I meant to say. I thought Some Like It Hot Brown ran well. Famously, Some Like It Hot Brown is the horse that ran at the wrong distance in Saratoga this summer and won by 8. That's not why I like him. I was just throwing out random trivia. Jose, he's drawn outside. He'll get a good position. Jose will have him in the race. They're gonna have to run by him, I think, probably at some point. I'm gonna take Some Like It Hot Brown, but I'm definitely using 40 under. I won't use a horse from California, and I'm not crazy about the race from Keeneland. And so those horses will be used defensively possibly, or maybe not even at all. I'm focusing on some of the Europeans, Line of Duty, like you mentioned, Anthony Van Dyke, and then the horses coming out of New York.
Matt Bernier.
Just for record keeping, Pete, you have the horses, the picks so far?
Line of Duty.
No, but I mean, you have all of our picks so far?
Oh, no, I haven't been tracking it. I think I could recreate it, though. I'll start tracking it.
I was going to say, it would be a shame if we got to the end of this.
It'd be pretty ridiculous and have to
luckily,
re-listen.
we can listen back.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun to re-listen to the shows.
I'm with you. I like line of duty a lot. I thought that run over at Shanti was really impressive, especially when, for a minute in a short field, it didn't look like he was going to extricate himself. And when he finally hit that little hole, he exploded. He kicked home in a big way. And that was over good to soft ground, so that's big. And then Jonathan kind of hit on something. But I'm torn right now between the horse that I picked second, who is 40 under, and the horse that I picked third, who is Current, who's coming out of that Keeneland race. I just love the way that Current finished, but I'm not totally convinced he's going to be able to replicate that over ground that is just a complete bog, like it sounds like it's going to be on Friday. Where on the flip side, 40 under, that Pilgrim came over a pretty heavy sort of racing surface where you see obviously the time wasn't sparkling, but I mean, how is it supposed to be that fast considering it was as wet as it was? I suppose I'm going to end up going with 40 under just because I kind of agree with Jonathan. I think he's got a little bit of tactical ability, proven over testing ground already, and the form of that Pilgrim, I think it's going to stack up pretty well in here. The horse that I picked in fourth, I guess I'm curious what both of your thoughts are. I picked Anthony Van Dyke in fourth. Why am I the only one that doesn't really like this horse? I just kind of did it by default. I wasn't blown away by anything he's done over there. I think he's okay. Am I crazy?
Well, I'll tell you this. This spiel comes with a warning, and the warning is that the last 2 years, Aidan O'Brien has sent out a horse who was an also-ran in the Dewhurst, who I was against, who ended up sticking it in my ear in Lancaster Bomber 2 years ago, and then, of course, the winner, Mendelssohn, last year, who we'll get to in a little bit. That said, I'm really concerned about the ground for Anthony Van Dyke. I feel like on the tape, you could just sort of see him not enjoying, looking almost a little lazy relative to his strong ability on the softer ground. Look, on form, the horse has the best form in the race, but I think there are enough questions. I think the price is going to be short enough. Now, the 14 post also makes me think of Hit It a Bomb from back another O'Brien horse that ran in this race. That one back in 2015, who you ended up getting a massive overlay on because the horse was stuck so far outside. This is a horse who, if it's practical to save with, I will save with, but I don't like the horse. And if the horse gets bet down, I would say there might be real value in opposing. So I'm sitting on the fence here a little bit, but the short answer is I don't think you're crazy, Matt.
I think he's okay. I mean, and look, I'm going to use him in every multi, no question about it. But it just, I don't know. I feel like I've seen much more impressive O'Brien horses from a tape standpoint. But like you say, he certainly is the class of the field. He's run in the best races, and he's run respectably in all of them too. So I mean, I totally get that. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a very big mistake. But I say that at the same time, it's not like I'm going to be throwing him out. I'm going to be using him. So maybe it's not that giant a mistake. I just don't love him. Put it that way.
To Matt's pick, I spent every morning out since Saturday hanging around the backside. I heard 3 trainers, separate ones, different times, all point out how amazing 40 under worked on the turf with moisture in it at Churchill Downs. If you're playing a multi, you need to use 40 under.
Agreed. Definitely one of the buzz horses of the week here, 40 under. Obvious attributes for Jeremiah Engelhardt in that race. All right, here we go. It's the featured race of Friday, race 9, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Where are we? I'll do the record keeping, Matt. You tell us who picks one.
I think I'm first, right?
J.K. Betts lead off, yes.
I am going to take Code of Honor.
Really? All I've heard is you badmouth Code of Honor, and now you take him just to spite me?
Yeah, pretty much. I know who you're going to pick. You're going to pick a 30-1 shot and try to be real cute and clever. And I just figured I'll take Code of Honor. And I heard he's working well. He looks like he's working well. I was very impressed with him. At Saratoga, I said to myself, wow, this horse just won wire to wire for Shug. How good is he? And he ran well in the Champagne against Complexity. And I think Complexity is the super live second choice. And Code of Honor is only going to, if you think of it from a Shug standpoint, the horse is only going to continue to improve. I think Game Winner is probably the most likely winner. I'm not crazy about Complexity. I'm gonna use Code of Honor for the contest.
I think Game Winner is very clearly the horse to beat in this spot. Maybe this is just me just being hard-headed and just wanting to go with the horse that I'm picking in the race. But I think Game Winner is the horse to beat. Complexity, I think talent-wise, it's hard to argue with what he's done. I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to love 2 turns, but I know it's too early to really make a definitive statement there. I know who wants every bit of 2 turns, and I may be way early on this horse. I think he's going to end up being a good one, though, next year. I think Standard Deviation is very, very talented. On paper, he's painfully slow right now compared to the top boys in here. He's going to need to step up tremendously, but I kind of feel like you look and see if you want anyone out of that Breeders' Futurity, I think it's him. Now, maybe you don't want anyone out of that race, but that's your prerogative. I look at it and say he lost that race at the post position draw, breaking from 13. He was hung wide every step of the way. He was the only one doing any real running. Now, the fact that Chad runs him in this spot, puts blinkers on, past 5 years for Chad, first time blinkers in a graded stakes race, 4 for 10, 8 in the money with a $9.12 ROI. Again, he maybe Friday is not the day. I think he's going to run well Friday. I think he's going to turn into a really nice 3-year-old. I'm going to go with Standard Deviation.
Bold pick. I like it. I'm not going to be a hero. I'm not going to take one of the other buzz horses. We'll talk about him in a minute, but I'm not going to take the buzz horse. I'm going to keep it simple and go with the old fastest horse angle and just try to get some points on the board with Game Winner. In truth, I don't see him being worse than second, and he might just be better than these. I'm not going to bore you with the attributes of a 6-5 shot. I'm just going to take Game Winner in my 3rd spot here, and I'll let JK tell you about this other horse who we've had about 6 people tell us how great he looked in the morning.
First day I was hanging out, I was with a trainer. He said, man, I saw this Mott thing that looked amazing. I'm thinking like, oh, it's a channel maker? He's like, no, I think it had like a saddle close to 2-year-old. We're trying to figure it out, and it's Topper T. And I'm not kidding you. Like, 7 people I've heard talk about how amazing Topper T is working. Apparently, Topper T got hooked up with Imperial Hints last work.
We saw
so I'm
that.
sure you can find that somewhere online.
Yeah.
But he got supplemented for $160,000. He ran second at Canterbury last time in a $75,000 stake. He's been in Bill Mott's barn for 48 days. They spent $160,000 to get him into this race. And everyone in the world says how good he's working. He's 30-1 on the morning line. I dare you not to use him.
Too slow on any number that I've seen, but depending on how clever your ticket construction is, if you have room to throw him in for a penny, I would feel too silly at this point. I mean, sometimes it's fun to be stubborn, and if it comes to a point where I look at the math and I'm spending too much money to include a horse like this, I will leave the horse out who I don't think has any chance on paper. But when you can include, it sort of gets to the old Mike Maloney idea about tips, include them when possible. You don't want to press them. I'm willing to do that with Topper T. I've just heard too many people whose opinions I respect, and out of deference to the great Bill Mott, I will allow him on the tickets. And if it was a 4-person contest and somehow those other 3 were taken, I probably would have taken him even over Complexity, even if that seems a little bit silly. Any other thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile before we move on to the 2 races we'll be talking about as part of this show on the Saturday?
I mean, I guess for me, really, this thing boils down to how fast do they go early on, because it looks like, on paper anyway, it looks like this is going to be a very, very swift pace early on. Something that a horse like Complexity, he's just naturally been faster than everyone else that he's run against. I don't think that'll be the case on Friday, and if it is, it's still going to be a hell of a lot faster than he's had to go in those first 2. I know the fractions in Champaign are fast, but the track was fast that day as well. To me, that's really going to be the key to this race, is how fast do they go early on? Are you going to get a 46-second half mile? If you do, I think it's going to be a stagger fest late. If they can rate it back to 47 and change, almost 48, then I think those horses that are forward, they certainly can get brave.
All right, let's move on to Saturday. The Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint is where we begin. And who begins for our team?
I believe it would be my turn now, which I'm not particularly thrilled about. I mean, look, Marley's Freedom is the horse to beat. There's really Well, I shouldn't say there's no question about it, because if you go back to the last time Selcourt was on the track, she absolutely ripped Marley's Freedom's face off. Now, I know a lot's happened between now and then, but Marley's Freedom, to me, is the most likely winner of the race. I had a hard time with this race just because I'm not 100% convinced that she's just going to go off and win for fun. I'm not sold on Selcourt off the long layoff. And then outside of that, I mean, boy, just take your pick on a giant price. I ended up picking in the paper, and this may end up looking like a ridiculous pick. I picked the 4 Kirby's Penny, and I'll take her here in the contest too. The Gallant Bloom, her effort that day, I think, is much better than it even looks on paper. That was a day that Timeform US had the main track at Belmont color-coded dark blue, meaning it was intensely closer-friendly as opposed to speed-friendly. She was the one that was up there cutting out the fraction. She put the other speed horses away and just got run down by Union Strike and Your Love. I'm not super thrilled about the idea of her at 7/8 of a mile, but at the same time, I don't know if she's 30-1, but she's going to be darn close to it. I kind of feel like that last race was better than it looks, and she's already shown 3 starts back in that vagrancy that she won. She doesn't have to have the lead, that she can sit just off. I think this will be a hot pace. Again, it's Marley. If it's not Marley's Freedom, I think, or Selcourt, I think it could be anyone, and I'm going to lean that direction. I'll go with Kirby's Penny.
I like the creativity, that's for sure. Who is up second?
You are, I believe.
That would be me. I'm in a position now to take more chalk. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I mean, Marley's Freedom is a horse who, at the current prices in the UK, hovering around 2-1, I've been advising people to bet, knowing fully well that probably will not be the reality here, and we could see one who's bet off the boards. But that ballerina was so impressive. I've talked about her enough in this race. I'm just going to go ahead and take a little bit more chalk in our contest and start things off with Marley's Freedom. JK, where are you?
So one of the things I like, we always talk. I mean, I think all 3 of us are pretty big fans of Timeform US, and I was looking through the PPs on the plane today, and I said, wow, they're going to really, really run in this race. So I was looking forward to getting the Wi-Fi to work so I could look at the preview screen to see who had the best late figure. If you look at Timeform, there's the early figure, the late, early pace figure, late pace figure. I wanted to see who had the best figure, and I flipped through it. And by like 20 points, it's Marley's Freedom. And I was like, are you kidding me? I thought she was like going to be forwardly placed. I didn't think she was going to be the closer I was looking for. I'm using 2 horses in this race, depending on what, I'll probably play some early pick 5s for fun in real life. But I think Marley's Freedom's the most likely winner. They are going to absolutely run in here. But Mike Smith's going to have, drawn outside. I don't think it's a bad thing at all in this spot. I'm going to see exactly what's happening underneath. And I'm going to use Golden Mischief as my other horse that I'll use. I'll probably do like an A with a B situation. This is not going to be a race I'm going to be heavily involved with in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. But those are the 2 horses I like the most. I'm going to take Golden Mischief for the contest between the 3 of us.
Fair enough, and if the order had been switched and Marley had been off the board, I would have landed Golden Mischief, another horse who there's been plenty of nice things said about how she is doing when it comes to the workouts this week.
One more thing, just a reminder for some of the newer, I know we have a lot of new fans that listen, and just even the hardcore guys can still miss some of these things. And this is one thing that I try not to miss when it comes to the Filly and Mare Sprint. It's 7 furlongs. A lot of these races that these horses are running in, these big races that you fall in love with them at, are at 6. Please evaluate how you think that will translate. Golden Mischief is one that I think will translate to 7 based on the race that she ran going 6.
All right, let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. This is that goes as the 4th race on Saturday and will be, if my calculations are correct, the 7th and final race of this episode of the DRF Players Podcast. We'll spend a few minutes at the end of the show here talking about those head-to-head bets, and then we'll continue the discussion on the Matt Bernier show. Who leads us off here?
Believe it's JK. No, it's you, Pete.
Of course, you guys did this on purpose. You guys gave me the Turf Sprint because you think that's what I wanted.
No, I think it's Pete, isn't it?
I think it might be me. And this is one where I think it's. I mean, my honest opinion, it's a disadvantage to go first. It's a disadvantage to go first here because it's so tricky. You've got favorites who are live, but I mean, I have the memories of Disco Partner. I want to pick Disco Partner. On firm ground, I'm picking Disco Partner. But just the horse has underperformed on slick ground, and it makes it tough. I don't want one at the bottom of the market. JK is on record being not the biggest fan of Bucaro. I do like Bucaro, but again, I don't know.
Trying to get you in trouble, Pete?
No, you made me a hero. I just got to badmouth you to Bucaro's owner for like 45 minutes. Usually I badmouth you and people are like, oh no, he's not that bad. Harlan was eating it up with a spoon. It was fantastic. He's on the list here of horses I might end up picking. He's very game. He's very game and he's very good. You obviously have these whole other contingents of horses as well. The heck with it. I was feeding him peppermints the other day. I'm just going to go ahead and go with Bucaro. I wrote a little piece about him. He's a very game horse. It would sort of be like a double win to get points in the contest and shove it in JK's face. That's where I'm going. But, I mean, this is obviously a confusing and open race and not one where in real life I think my route in the race may be our contest potentially.
I think it's me. Is it me, Matt? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Next year we'll write out the schedule. By the way,
Yeah.
I got to remember that. If my brain weren't so fried, I'd be doing a better hosting job. Matt will do a better job in his hour, but I apologize to you guys.
Don't put that on me.
And the
Don't put that on me. It's late.
I think obviously Disco Partner is for me no matter what I'm doing is a must use. But the horse I'm really interested in is World of Trouble. 130 time form US. That's like some Arrogate, American Pharaoh. Just that's a real number. A 130. And I promise you that Craig Milkowski did not just give that horse a 130 without making sure that everything about it made sense. He ran a 130. Not only did he run a 130, but he ran it on good ground. He's drawn outside, and I think that he's a horse that could be a lot of trouble for the rest of these other horses.
I see what you did there, JK. I see what you did there. And one thing I'm guessing you didn't do there was watch his most recent workout. Matt, what do you think in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint?
Yeah, no, I would have gone with World Approval, even having seen World Approval. Jesus, World of Trouble. If World Approval was in this race, that would be something. World of
Might
Trouble.
Be a little sharp. You might find the 5.5 a little sharp.
Yeah, a little quick for him. Even having seen that last workout, there's just a part of me that looks at it and says, I think World of Trouble might just be that kind of horse where he finally got put on the surface that he wanted all along, and he's gone out and he struts his stuff. So that was the horse I picked first. I guess I'll just kind of default to my second choice, and I'm not totally convinced about the ground for him, but I believe the 6 Rainbow Air on his best day can certainly win this race. The distance isn't a problem for him. There was something odd that went on with this horse where after that Gulfstream Turf Sprint, I believe they were going to go and stand him. And I haven't seen the story or what the situation is, but
he covered mares.
Oh, we did, and they brought him back in.
Service was on Bick a while back. He covered mares and came back. He literally he's going to have babies.
That's fascinating. That doesn't happen very often. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I thought he ran fine in that Turf Monster. And if you think he can take a step forward off of that race, then I think he fits in here really well. Jose takes the mount. Again, I'm not totally sure about the ground for him, but at the same time, I also don't think he'll be 12-1. I think he's going to be more in that 8 or 10-1 range. But I think Rainbow Air has as good a chance as anyone. Like you guys said, this to me is an absolute scramble. It's kind of crazy that a horse like Stormy Liberal, I mean, look, he can certainly win, but I don't know. I certainly couldn't be playing him with strong conviction in a race like this, given all the variables.
Yeah, and Pete, the to your point about the workout, it wasn't visually impressive. However, there's a handful of trainers that I'll see how they look on.
We saw a guy today at the table doing sleight of hand magic. He had a literal magic wand, and he made some amazing things happen. Are you suggesting that certain trainers have the same ability?
Yeah, I just think that he's first of all, he's working on dirt. He's on grass. He ran really well, and he's got 56 days off. I think that there's some horses I would toss based on the way they looked in work, and I am willing to give him a shot on race day.
It makes sense. It was just a quip from having that burned in my memory. It's a spread race. I think we should maybe I have a couple of spready type horses to mention for possible inclusion. Ruby Notion ran unbelievably well in the soft ground in Saratoga. We talked about her extensively on the show with Scott Carson several shows back. She'd be one I wouldn't mind having on some tickets at a presumably large number. And I want you to actually listen to the Final Furlong podcast I did with Emmett Kennedy and Kevin Blake, but I will pass along that Kevin also did make a really interesting case for seemingly overmatched Lost Treasure, who I think could be a pretty big number, unless the connections keep that number down. Anyway, I'll let you listen to the Final Furlong podcast to hear the whole spiel from Kevin about it. But Lost Treasure, another who on my widest of spreads I wouldn't mind having. Do either of you gents have a big bomber, not for the contest, but one to mention in this spot?
Richard's Boy cost me like 2 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge entries essentially last week. It was very frustrating. Santa Anita contest, I needed him. They were really fast early. It's a really weird situation. They ran him there, and they're running him right back again. He's a talented horse, and I just remember when he ran against Payne Price, it was pouring rain that day, and it was just started, so I don't think the ground was going to be affected too much. Nothing in his form really suggests that he's going to love the good ground, but he's just going to be a big price, and he's a really classy horse. He's drawn outside. He's going to be forward, and in these turf sprints, you want horses like that. I just wouldn't. He's the type of horse that runs third in the try, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't have Richard's Boy. That's just I would use him in those types of spots. I don't think he's winning this race, but he's an underneath type. I would use Will Call right outside of him as another one who ran pretty good last time at Keeneland.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to anyone. I've said it to a number of people. If I never had to look at a turf sprint ever again, it would be too soon. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not very good at it. So take my picks with a grain of salt with this race. I just don't have a good feel for him. I think it's just too much chaos for me to try to decipher. I could easily, if I was playing any sort of a multi with this race, luckily it's early enough where I don't think there's a ton that I'd be involved in. I would be spreading deep here. And even having said that, spreading deep and not having a heck of a lot of confidence that I'd get through.
All right, let's talk about these head-to-head wagers, JK. We'll just do the Friday ones on this show, and then we'll go ahead and talk about, if Matt doesn't mind, the Saturday ones when we get to the second half of this. I guess if there are head-to-heads on those first couple of races Saturday, we could go ahead and talk about those too. What do you got for us?
I mean, I think there's an opportunity in the first one, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Philly Turf. I mean, I think if I would imagine that the American side, it's USA versus Europe. You get to pick. It's a $10 minimum, 10% takeout. Look, we're trying to get some things accomplished with the wagering at Breeders' Cup, and part of our plan is to get them to understand how low takeout can be effective. This is the lowest takeout bet that we have in pari-mutuel wagering. When it comes to horse racing, support the bet, pick a couple sides, play a couple bucks. It's a highly, it's two sides. It's easy to work through. I think that what's going to happen here is I think that and plus these are new bets. I think the U.S. side is going to get very heavy here because you get Concrete Rose, who was extremely impressive at Keeneland. I don't like where she drew, but still she's impressive. You got Newspaper of Record, and you'll get Summering. The U.S. side could get pretty heavy, and I think that there's an opportunity in playing multi-race bets where you can essentially kind of you can almost hedge to a certain extent, where you take single Newspaper of Record and then use the European side, or something like that. So I think I would probably go with the American side, obviously, but I have a feeling it's gonna be a little bit
lopsided. Any other Friday head-to-heads?
Yes. There is.
Go ahead and tell us what they are, and then maybe Matt and I will each pick one to make a comment on.
I think the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf is U.S. versus America.
Okay.
Let me pull them up just so I can have them. But let's come back to that one. I know for sure Complexity versus Game Winner. You guys can talk about that one while I double check the other ones.
Sure. I mean, it's all about the price, but that is pretty interesting. There's nothing wrong with Complexity. I'm not not that excited by him, and obviously a big Game Winner fan. It'd be an interesting alternative to a win bet there for sure. I would definitely want to take a look at that possibility, and I'd certainly lean towards Game Winner. Any thoughts on that bet, Matt?
Yeah, I feel like Game Winner. Anything can happen. It's a horse race, but I really don't see much to knock about that horse. He's proven it 2 turns. He's run fast already. He's got the connections. He has connections that can ship into Churchill Downs. Not that Chad can't, but obviously Baffert's had done a thing or two here. I don't really have many knocks about him, and for me, it is still one of those unknowns. Until they do it, you never know. And with a horse like Complexity, until he goes 2 turns, you never know. And until he faces if he doesn't make the front, I believe he's probably going to be able to sit off of a horse, but I don't know for certain. And on the flip side, I know for certain the Game Winner can sit off of a horse and pass no problem. So to me, that would be all Game Winner on that side. Obviously, price pending, but I would heavily lean toward him.
Juvenile Turf is one. We're going to do U.S. horses versus Europe. So you'll get 5 interests through Europe. Arthur Kitt, Line of Duty, The Black Album, Maurice Diamond, and Anthony Van Dyke versus all the American horses. So that's another one that I would lean U.S. I really like 40 under. I really like some like it Hot Brown. You're going to get a little current in there as well. And so I think there's definitely some value on the U.S. side of the Juvenile Turf.
That one to me feels like the most even of the ones that you've mentioned so far. Just because, like you say, you have those good horses coming out of New York and obviously Current coming out of Kentucky. But on the flip side, you've got, whether it's a Line of Duty or an Anthony Van Dyke or some of these other horses coming in from Europe. I feel that one to me feels like, of the ones that we've touched on already, the most even of them at this point.
It'll be interesting to see what bias sort of shows up in these pools. I don't see a lot of European money coming in general. So I get why JK is assuming the USA side might be an overlay, but we really have to wait and see. So
it's going to be interesting, right? I mean, I spent an hour and a half, and if you haven't seen it, we put it on Periscope. Spent an hour and a half on, yesterday listening to Marshall Graham talk about computer wagering and how it affects our pools and our market. And the computers are not going to be in these pools. There'll be no late adjustments, I don't think. I mean, they're not going to be in here. The bets got announced yesterday. No one has models for this yet. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 guys will, but it's going to be a pretty true representation, I think, of just players playing the bet. Don't you think, Pete?
Yeah, I wouldn't be so confident you won't see computers in these pools. I think it depends. I don't think it's that hard to take the win probability your computer comes up with and translate that into something that could possibly make a wager here. And the pools may be short enough that small enough that that kind of money could have an impact. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I'll say that much. I don't know. I'm not ruling out playing these bets. It's really going to be a watch and learn situation. I'm glad they're doing it though. I think it's interesting, and I'm glad that they're pricing them as low as they are.
What's your guess at average pool size of these bets?
I'm so rotten at that game. Do you have any thought? Is there
Santa Anita's double, just for reference. They're double like on a Saturday as like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. I mean, I think there'd be it's Breeders' Cup though, right? I mean, I don't know. I would be happy if they got to 100. I just don't know if they will. It's kind of it was announced kind of late.
That popped in my head, and then it seemed too high, so then I decided to sit on the fence. But we'll know a lot more. But I mean, I like your point about wanting to support them. Is there another one on Friday, or is there one of the first 2 races?
That's it. We've got there's 3 on Friday, and I believe there's 4. 4. Yeah, there's 4 on Saturday. So we'll hit those in the next show.
Let's speed round a couple of questions that we got from the audience. Are we concerned? Kind of interesting that there are several events with favorites drawn in outside post positions. Catalina Cruiser, Accelerate, Monomoy Girl. Do any of these draws worry you for these particular horses, Matt?
No, not especially. The outside draw, to me, at this point, I suppose there's a scenario where some of them get hung a little bit wide, but truth be told, with the horses that you're talking about, and I'm just thinking of those sort of last three that you mentioned, Accelerate, Monomoy Girl, as well as Catalina Cruiser, they all kind of have the ability to get into the run early enough where, absolute worst case scenario, they're stalking and they're 2 or 3 off the rail. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where they get absolutely hung out to dry, any of them. To me, put it this way, if you're using that as the reason to get off of a horse of this caliber in this kind of race, I think that you may be going the wrong direction. Personally, I don't have any issue with any of them.
JK, do you invest in any special handicapping tools on big days?
I buy the DRF workout report for sure. Mike Welsh and those guys do a great job keeping track of everything that's going on. So that's definitely one thing I do. No different than buying Timeform. I mean, I have a monthly subscription to Timeform, which I've found to be the most effective. It's unlimited if you do that. It's like $70 a month, and you can click on anything all the time. So there's nothing I go out of my way to purchase. To be honest, it's going to sound weird, and I know we talked about it the other day, Pete, but I kind of handicap less in the Breeders' Cup because I kind of know everything. Not everything. I know these horses.
JK,
right?
he knows everything.
Yeah, I don't know everything. I'm not gonna find out a ton more about these horses that I don't already know. It's not like a Wednesday or a Saturday when you have a 14-horse race with claimers in it, and you have to figure out what all's going on there. 4-Star Crook. I could tell you about 7 of her races this year. It's like, so I don't really know if there's a product out there, but I will tell you this: if there's a $10 thing that you normally do that you haven't done, it's Breeders' Cup. Go ahead and do it.
I used to buy Timeform UK. But you don't have to do that anymore because you've got most all of that information incorporated right into Timeform US. Matt, any special handicapping that you do or products you purchase for the Breeders' Cup?
No, kind of like Jonathan said, we're kind of at a point now in the year where, for the most part, you know all these horses. You've seen them run throughout the year. The only ones that I need to do more of a deep dive on are the Europeans coming over here that I'm unfamiliar with, particularly the 2-year-olds. But for the most part, it's just kind of wait until the post positions are drawn and then, lay it all out and try to make some opinions. But for the most part, most of the work's already been done. You just kind of, I hate to say plug and play, but kind of,
Put it all together, design your races, maybe spend extra time. I will say this, complicated wagering menu, and with that handicapping side, maybe, as the guys point out, already taken care of a little bit intuitively from following the races throughout the year, maybe a good excuse to spend more time choosing which pools to play in and constructing tickets. Okay, that is all the time we have for this part 1 of the co-production DRF Players Podcast and Matt Bernier Show. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. I want to thank Matt Bernier. I want to thank JK. I want to thank all of you for listening. We'll be back momentarily, but I'll go ahead and give the sign-off anyway. May you win all your photos.